If you can, close your eyes.
Okay, doing it. Eyes closed.
No, just listen to your body. I mean, really listen. What do you hear? What do you feel?
Well, if I'm really quiet, I can feel my heart beating. That familiar thump thump.
Right. You feel the engine. The heart is, it's loud. It demands your attention. If you run up a flight of stairs, it pretty much screams at you.
Yeah.
You feel your lungs expanding, that rush of air in and out. You might even feel your stomach gurgling if you skipped lunch.
The noisy neighbors of human biology. I like that.
Exactly. We obsess over the loud stuff. We monitor our heart rate on our watches. We track our breathing with apps. We worry constantly about our blood pressure.
Of course.
But here is the thing. While you are sitting there listening to the thump-thump of your heart, there's this massive, silent river flowing inside you. And it makes absolutely no sound.
A silent river.
And it's not a small one. This system is actually twice the size of your entire blood supply. It is flowing through almost every inch of your tissue right now. But because it's silent, because it doesn't have a big, dramatic pump like the heart, we completely ignore it.
Until it stops working, of course.
Right. Until it backs up. And when this river stops flowing, you don't just get a little bit sick. You don't just feel a bit off.
No, not at all. I mean, if this system truly completely stopped, you would be dead within a day.
A day.
But if it just slows down, if it gets sluggish and stagnates, you essentially become a swamp.
A swamp. See, that was the line in the research that just stopped me cold. The body becomes a swamp. We are talking, of course, about the lymphatic system.
The unsung hero, the janitor, the security guard. It really does wear a lot of hats.
It does. And today we are doing something a little different on this deep dive. Usually we take one perspective and, we run with it. But for this topic, I looked at the stack of research you sent over, and we have two completely different worlds here.
We really do. It's a collision of paradigms, in a way.
On one hand, we have this rigorous Western scientific stack. We've got papers on immunology, fluid dynamics, anatomy, and even Nobel Prize-winning research on cellular recycling, something called autophagy.
Which is just incredible science. It's the mechanics of how we survive laid bare.
But then we have this other stack,
and
it's ancient. We're talking texts drawing from yogic philosophy and what they call biopsychology. And they're looking at the exact same fluid, this lymph, but they aren't seeing a sewage system.
No, far from it. They see liquid gold.
They describe it as the raw material for your consciousness.
Yeah.
They say this fluid is the fuel for your hormones, your physical vigor, and eventually your intelligence and even your spiritual growth.
It's the bridge. I think that's the best way to frame today's conversation. The lymphatic system is the biological bridge between the meat and bone of your body and the ethereal experience of your mind.
So that is our mission today. We're going to synthesize these two worlds. We're going to figure out why a sluggish lymph system makes you feel that brain fog. We are definitely going to talk about monkeys.
The monkey theory is.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. You're going to love it.
I can't wait. We're going to talk about why monkeys have so much energy and what on earth that has to do with spinach.
We'll look at the science of fasting, from the Nobel Prize all the way to the phases of the moon.
Right.
And finally, we're going to give you a practical toolkit because, as I learned to my horror, this river doesn't have a pump.
No heart to speak of?
No heart. So you have to be the pump.
We have to be the pump.
Okay, let's dive in. I want to start with the Western lens because I think we need to understand the plumbing before we can really talk about the spirituality of it all. It just makes sense.
Agreed. The foundation.
So when I say lymphatic system, I think most people, myself included, before this, just picture those glands in their neck that swell up when they get a cold.
The lymph nodes, sure. That's sort of the PR department of the system, isn't it? It's the part you can actually see and feel.
But it's so much more than that. Help us visualize this. If I could, look inside my body and turn everything invisible except the lymphatic system, what am I looking at? You're looking at a spider web, an incredibly fine, delicate mesh that covers the entire body. It runs alongside almost every single blood vessel. It's in your skin, your gut, your muscles, your brain, which is a recent discovery.
Whoa.
It's a network of these tiny, tiny tubes, lymphatic capillaries that get bigger and bigger, leading to these trick points, the nodes, and then eventually they all dump the fluid into the big veins near your heart.
Okay, so it's like a parallel road network to the blood vessels.
Right.
But what is actually in the tubes? What is lymph?
Right. So to understand that, we have to zoom in on how your body feeds itself at the most basic level. Imagine a city. Your body is the city. The blood vessels, they're the delivery trucks.
Uh-huh.
They're driving down the highway, your arteries, carrying oxygen, nutrients, glucose, water, all the good stuff.
The supply chain.
The supply chain, exactly. Now, these trucks arrive at the individual houses, your cells, but they can't just drive into the living room, right? They stop at the curb, which are the capillaries, and they offload the goods. Now, here is let's call it an inefficiency of human biology. When they offload those nutrients, a lot of the fluid carrying them leaks out with it.
Leaks out like a hose with tiny holes in it.
That's a perfect way to put it. It's a process called hydrostatic pressure. The blood pumps are so powerful, they actually push fluid out of the porous capillary walls into the spaces between the cells.
The interstitial space.
Exactly. That fluid is now interstitial fluid. It's like a soup that all of your cells are constantly bathing in.
So my cells are just floating in a soup of delivery water. That's a weird image.
It is, but it's true. Now, the cells, they're happy. They take what they need from the soup, the oxygen, the sugar, but they also dump their trash out into that very same soup.
Of course they do.
All their metabolic waste, CO2, debris, little broken parts of the cell.
So now the soup is getting dirty.
It's getting murky. Now, the blood vessels, they try to be tidy. The return trucks, the veins, they use something called osmotic pressure to suck most of that fluid back up. But, and this is the absolute crucial number, they leave about 10 to 15% of it behind.
That doesn't sound like a lot, though. 10%.
It sounds small, I know. But volume-wise, we are talking about 3 to 4 liters of fluid every single day.
Wait, what? 3 liters? That's 2 of those giant soda bottles of fluid just sitting there in my tissues.
Sitting there, in between the cells. And if that fluid just stayed there, you would swell up like a water balloon. You'd suffer from severe edema within 24 to 48 hours. The tissues would literally start to rot from the inside out.
Okay, that's horrifying. So the lymphatic system is the storm drain.
Is the overflow train, the cleanup crew. The lymphatic capillaries are sitting right there in that tissue, and they have these really cool little one-way flaps on them. When the pressure of that leftover fluid builds up, the flaps open, and that murky, trash-filled fluid flows into the lymph vessels.
And that's the moment.
That is the moment. The second it enters that vessel, it gets a name change. It's no longer interstitial fluid. Now it is lymph.
So lymph is basically the leftover delivery fluid plus all the cellular trash.
Plus some other much scarier stuff. Because it's the drainage system, it picks up literally everything. Proteins that are too big to get back into the blood vessels, dead cell parts, bacteria, viruses.
Wow.
And even cancer cells that have broken off from a tumor, they all end up floating in the lymph.
My God. So it's not just a river, it's a sewage pipe.
It's a sewage pipe, but it's also a recycling center and a military base all rolled into one. This is where the anatomy gets really cool. This fluid, this lymph, flows along these vessels until it hits a lymph node.
The checkpoint. The gland in my neck.
Exactly. Think of the node like a water treatment plant combined with a TSA security checkpoint. Inside that little bean-shaped organ, the fluid is forced to slow down. It percolates through this dense maze of filters.
And who's waiting in the maze?
The soldiers, millions and millions of immune cells, specifically T cells and B cells. T cells are the hunters. They mature in the thymus, which is another lymphatic organ right behind your breastbone. B cells are the intelligence agency. They create the antibodies.
So they're just sitting there scanning.
Constantly scanning every single drop of this fluid. They're asking, is that a protein? That's fine, let it pass. Wait a second, is that a strep bacteria?
And if they find one,
boom! It's an all-out attack. The macrophages, which are like the giant garbage trucks of the immune system, they just gobble up the invader. The T cells coordinate the entire strike.
And that's why the node swells up and gets sore. It's a battleground.
Exactly. The swelling is literally the violence of the battle. It's the accumulation of all those immune cells, extra fluid, and the debris of the enemy. It means the system is working perfectly. It's trapping the infection there so it doesn't get into your bloodstream and cause sepsis.
I have a newfound respect for my swollen glands.
Oh.
Okay, so it balances the fluid and it fights the wars.
Yeah.
But I saw a third function in the notes that really surprised me. It handles fat.
Yes, and this connects directly to why you feel so sluggish and heavy after a greasy meal. It's not just in your head.
Tell me more.
The blood capillaries in your gut are just too small and delicate to absorb large fat molecules. They just can't fit through the wall.
So the normal delivery trucks can't handle the heavy freight.
Right. It's too bulky. So the body has a workaround. It uses the lymphatic system. In the lining of your intestines, there are these special, very absorbent lymph vessels called lacteals.
Lacteals.
When you eat a burger or French fries, the fats get absorbed directly into these lacteals. The lymph fluid there literally turns milky white. It's actually called chyle.
Milky white lymph. That sounds unpleasant.
It's like milk. And this chyle, this fatty lymph, travels all the way up the lymphatic system and eventually gets dumped directly into your bloodstream near your neck.
Whoa, wait. So the fat you eat bypasses the liver at first and goes straight into your general circulation via the lymph?
Straight in.
That seems risky. Inefficient.
It puts a huge, huge load on the system. If your lymph is already sluggish and then you dump a load of fat into it, you are essentially clogging the filter. You're creating a traffic jam in the sewage system.
Which brings us perfectly to the design flaw. I kept reading this part of the research and thinking, evolution, you really missed a spot here.
No.
The heart pumps the blood. It's a 247 high-pressure engine. It pushes that blood hard.
Yeah.
But you're telling me this lymph system, which is moving liters of toxic fluid and fighting cancer cells, has no pump.
No central pump, no lymph heart, nothing.
How is that even possible? How does the fluid move up from my feet against gravity back to my chest?
It relies on you. It relies entirely on mechanical stimulation. There are 3 main engines for lymph flow, and not a single one of them is automatic.
Okay, this is terrifying. What's the first one?
The first, and maybe the most obvious, is muscle contraction.
Just moving.
Just moving. The lymph vessels are literally sandwiched between your muscles. When you walk, when your calf muscle flexes and relaxes, it physically squeezes the vessel. And since there are these tiny one-way valves inside the vessels, that squeeze can only push the fluid up toward the heart.
So if I'm walking, I am literally pumping my own lymph.
You are the pump. And if you are sitting in a chair for 8 hours at your desk,
The pump is off.
the pump is off, the fluid pools, the ankles swell, the sewage sits in the pipes, not moving.
That is a deeply unsettling thought. What are the other engines?
The second one is a bit more subtle. It's arterial pulse. The lymph vessels often run right next to arteries, and the rhythmic thump-thump of the artery creates this tiny, constant massage wave that nudges the lymph along.
So my own pulse helps a little.
It helps a little, yeah. But the third one is arguably the most powerful, and it's the one we ignore the most.
The thoracic pump.
The breath. Specifically, deep diaphragmatic breathing. The largest lymphatic vessel in the entire body is called the thoracic duct. It runs right up through your chest.
The main highway. The I-95 of the lymph system.
The superhighway, for sure. It drains both legs, the pelvis, the entire gut, the left arm, the left side of the head. It's huge. When you take a proper deep belly breath, you lower the pressure in your chest cavity and you increase the pressure in your abdomen. This creates a massive vacuum effect. It literally sucks the lymph up from this little reservoir in your belly called the cisterna chyli.
Sucks it up.
Sucks it up toward the heart. It's an incredibly powerful pump.
So deep breathing is like a vacuum cleaner for the body's trash.
Deep breathing is, but that shallow, stressed email apnea breathing we all do.
Email apnea. I absolutely have that. I realize I'm holding my breath when I'm typing an important email.
We all do it. And when you hold your breath and sit still, you are actively choosing to turn your internal river into a stagnant pond. And what breeds in stagnant water?
Mosquitoes, algae, rot.
In the body, it's inflammation. It's the accumulation of cellular waste. It's the swamp. The sources list the consequences very clearly. Fatigue, because your cells are literally swimming in their own metabolic trash.
Brain fog.
Brain fog. A weak immune system, because the police cells can't get around to find the bad guys. Skin infections, acne. It's all connected.
It's like a garbage strike in the city. The trucks stop running, the trash piles up on the sidewalk, and suddenly the whole city just feels toxic and smells bad.
That is the perfect analogy. And that feeling of heaviness, of being lethargic and just... that is the physical sensation of lymphatic stagnation.
Okay, so that's the plumber's view. It's incredibly compelling. The pipes are clogged. The water is dirty. We need to move to flush it. It's mechanical. It makes perfect sense.
It's functional. It's the Western lens.
But now I want to pivot, because this is where things get really wild. The other stack of research you sent, the yoga psychology and the Eastern philosophy texts, they look at this exact same system, the same fluid, but they don't talk about sewage at all. They talk about liquid gold.
It is a radical, radical paradigm shift. In Western medicine, lymph is all about removal. It's about getting rid of waste.
Right.
In these Eastern traditions, lymph is about creation.
Creation of what, though?
Creation of you, your highest self, your intellect, your vitality, your consciousness.
Okay, you have to unpack that. How in the world do we get from drainage fluid to my highest self? That's a huge leap.
It is a huge leap. So in Ayurveda and yoga physiology, there is this concept of the 7 dhatus, which you can think of as the 7 layers of bodily tissue. And it's a hierarchy of refinement.
Like a manufacturing process, an assembly line.
Exactly like an assembly line. The text describes this beautiful chain of transformation. It starts with what we eat. They call it the quinquelemental factors: earth, water, fire, air, ether, in the form of food. The body takes this food and, through digestion, turns it into rasa. And rasa corresponds directly to plasma or lymph.
Okay, so step 1 on the assembly line is lymph. That's our stuff.
That's our stuff, but it doesn't stop there. The text argues that this lymph, this rasa, is then further refined. It nourishes and becomes the blood, rakta.
Okay.
The blood then nourishes and becomes the flesh, or muscle tissue, mamsa. Flesh feeds the fat tissue, meda. Fat feeds the bone, asthi. Bone feeds the marrow and nerve tissue, majra.
It's getting deeper and deeper, more essential into the body.
Exactly. And the final, most refined, most potent product of this entire 7-step chain, the absolute creme de la creme of human biology, is shukra.
Shukra. Now, I did look this up, and the common translation is reproductive fluid. Semen, or the sexual essence in women.
In a literal biological sense, yes, that's part of it. But the yoga psychology text we're drawing from argues it's so much more than just the stuff that makes babies.
Okay.
It views shukra as the biological essence of vitality itself. And here is the absolute kicker. The text claims that if this shukra is preserved, if it's not expended, it gets refined one more time and it becomes the primary food for the brain.
Food for the brain. I saw that phrase.
Yes. They call it the raw material for ectoplasmic particles of the mind.
Okay, ectoplasmic particles. That sounds like something out of Ghostbusters. I'm going to need you to ground this for me. What are they actually trying to say here in, modern terms?
They're trying to bridge matter and mind. That's the whole point. The theory is that your physical body, this incredible machine, distills everything you eat down into this high-potency energy source, shukra.
Right.
If you use that energy for reproduction, it creates a new life. That's one valid use for it. But what if you don't? If you retain it through certain practices, that energy transforms again. It becomes what they call ojas, or spiritual vigor, a kind of radiance. And it literally fuels the most subtle cognitive functions of the brain.
So the argument is the quality of your thoughts, your creativity, your intellect depends directly on the quality of your lymph from weeks ago.
Precisely. If the factory at the bottom of the assembly line, your digestion and lymph production is broken or inefficient, or if you're burning up the final product too fast, the brain is effectively starved of this high-octane fuel.
Wow.
You might be alive, you might be functioning, but you aren't brilliant. You aren't radiant. You don't have that spark.
This makes the section on diet so much more interesting because they get very, very specific about what makes good lymph. And it really all comes down to one ingredient: chlorophyll.
The green stuff. The lifeblood of plants.
The chlorophyll connection. The text draws this incredibly hard line between granivores, which are plant eaters, and carnivores, the meat eaters. And it uses an analogy that I just absolutely loved: the monkey versus the tiger.
It's such a great example. So just picture a monkey. A monkey is a classic granivore. It eats fruits, roots, and a massive amount of green leaves and creepers. It is just flooding its system with chlorophyll all day long.
And chlorophyll is the lymph booster.
According to this text, chlorophyll acts as a catalyst. It dramatically speeds up that manufacturing chain we just talked about. So the monkey is producing a huge surplus of high-quality lymph.
And what does the monkey do with all this surplus?
Well, it's a monkey. It doesn't, write poetry. It doesn't sit around contemplating the cosmos. So it has all this potential energy, the shukra potential, and it has to bring it off physically. That's why monkeys are so restless. That's why they jump and swing from trees for hours without getting tired. The source says they are literally high on their own lymph energy.
They're hyperactive because their biological batteries are constantly overcharged.
Exactly. Now contrast that with the tiger. The tiger eats meat. And the source argues that meat produces excessive heat in the body.
Heat. A different kind of energy.
A different kind. And this metabolic heat causes the lymph to semen conversion to happen too quickly, or it just burns it off for raw power. It bypasses the final, subtle, brain-nourishing stage of refinement.
So what's the result?
The tiger is incredibly strong. It's a powerful killer, but it sleeps 20 hours a day. It has bursts of power, but it lacks that restless, dynamic, continuous vitality of the monkey. The source describes carnivores as cunning, but less intellectual or spiritual.
So the text is basically saying, If you want to be a philosopher king, you should eat like a monkey, not a tiger.
It says, and I'm quoting loosely, human beings should be sentient in their food, their mind, and their intellect. It's all about keeping that supply chain running all the way to the top, to the mind, rather than stopping at the lower, more primal instincts.
It's a fascinating theory. It reframes a vegetarian diet as not just being about ethics or health, but about, well, the physics of consciousness.
It's about providing the cleanest fuel for the longest and most refined chain of production.
And this connects to our emotions, too.
Yeah.
There was a section about the solar plexus that blew my mind.
The gut brain. Modern science is catching up to this.
We always say we have a gut feeling, but this text links lymph flow in the gut specifically to the emotion of love. Now, I have to be skeptical here. Love is a complex emotion. Lymph is a biological fluid. How on earth do they connect them?
This is where we get into deep biopsychology. The solar plexus is this massive junction of nerves and lymphatic vessels and nodes. The text says that when lymph flows freely and abundantly here, it generates the feeling of affection. Initially, this is mammalian affection, a mother's love for a child, the love for family. It's biological.
The instinct to protect your own.
Right. But, and here's the spiritual leap, if a person is practicing, if they are meditating, if they are actively trying to refine themselves, that high secretion of lymph in the gut doesn't just stay as mommy love, it expands. It transforms into universal love, the love for all beings, or, as they put it, love for the supreme.
So a blocked, stagnant lymphatic system in your gut could literally be blocking your ability to feel a spiritual connection.
That is precisely the claim. If the pipes in your solar plexus are clogged with metaphorical sewage from bad food and stress, the subtle higher emotions can't manifest. You get stuck in the lower states. Fear, lethargy, greed, hunger. You can't feel universal love if your gut is a swamp.
That is a lot to process. We've gone from sewage pipe to the engine of God's love in about 20 minutes.
It's a very wide spectrum, isn't it?
It really is. But it raises the big question. If this system is so critical physically for our immunity and spiritually for our intellect, how do we clean it? If I'm a swamp right now, how do I drain it? This brings us to section 3, the science and spirit of detoxification.
And we really need to define detox carefully here. It's become such a buzzword, hasn't it? You see detox keys and detox foot pads and all this nonsense.
Right, snake oil.
Yeah.
But we are talking about something much deeper, much more fundamental.
We are. The source defines purification, or sharpness, as clearing both physical and mental toxins, and it draws a direct, unbreakable line between the two. A toxic internal environment physically leads to negative vrittis.
Vrittis. You have to define that for us.
Vrittis are mental propensities or tendencies. You can think of them as whirlpools of the mind. Things like lethargy, irritability, greed, fear, lust. The idea is that if your body is full of waste, if the lymph is stagnant, if your digestion is overloaded, it physically excites these negative mental states.
Yeah.
You feel physically sluggish, so your mind becomes lazy. You feel physically irritated, so your mind becomes angry.
So detox isn't just about fitting into your jeans for a wedding. It's about not being a grumpy, fearful, lazy person.
Exactly. External cleanliness helps. A clean house is good. But internal cleanliness is paramount. And the ultimate tool for this, across both our Western and Eastern sources, is fasting.
Fasting. It's having such a huge moment in pop culture right now, but it is ancient. Let's look at the Western science first. You mentioned a Nobel Prize.
Yes, the 2016 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine went to a Japanese scientist named Yoshinori Ohsumi for his work on autophagy.
Autophagy. Auto means self. Phagy means eating. So self-eating.
It sounds kind of gruesome, but it's one of the most brilliant survival mechanisms we have. When you stop eating for a certain period, your cells experience a mild beneficial stress. They realize there's no immediate fuel coming in.
So they start to panic.
Not panic, they get smart. They start to look around internally for scraps. They begin to actively break down and recycle their own damaged components. Old misfolded proteins, dysfunctional mitochondria, cellular debris, all the junk that's been piling up.
It's Marie Kondo for your cells. Does this bring me joy? No. Okay, recycle it.
That's a perfect way to describe it. It's cellular spring cleaning. And this process is critical for clearing out the junk that can lead to diseases like cancer or Alzheimer's. It reduces inflammation, it improves insulin sensitivity, and it switches the body's metabolism from burning sugar to burning fat-producing ketones, which are great for the brain.
So that's the hard science, the mechanism.
Yeah.
Now, the yogic science calls this upavasa. What's their angle?
Upavasa. The literal meaning is just beautiful. It means to live near God. The implication is that when you clear out the physical noise by fasting, you are creating the conditions that allow your mind to be absorbed in higher, more spiritual thoughts.
And they are very, very specific about when to fast. It's not just random. It's tied to the moon.
This is where the tides of the body come in. The source explains that just as the moon's gravitational pull affects the massive tides of the ocean, it also affects the fluids in our body. We are, after all, about 60% water.
And lymph is 96% water.
Exactly. So the text states that during the full moon and the new moon, and specifically on the 11th day after each of them, a day called Ekadashi, the gaseous and aqueous factors in the body rise up toward the head and chest.
Is that why people always say everyone acts crazy on a full moon? The lunar effect?
This source would certainly suggest so. This rising pressure can create an uncomfortable physical and mental feeling, potentially exciting those lower vridis we talked about: lust, anger, anxiety.
So how does fasting help?
By fasting on these specific days, ideally not taking food or even water, you draw down these factors. You alleviate the pressure. You keep the body cool and the mind calm when it's most susceptible to agitation.
It's like lowering the water level in a dam so it doesn't overflow during a predictable recurring storm.
That is a perfect analogy.
So practically speaking, what kind of fasting are we talking about here? The source mentions a few types, but for someone just starting out our learner profile, what's the best approach? I don't think they should jump into a 3-day dry fast.
Oh, absolutely not. The most accessible entry point by far is time-restricted eating, which most people know as intermittent fasting, or IF. This is simply compressing your eating window.
The classic 16.8. 16 hours of fasting, 8 hours of eating.
Right. You finish dinner at 8 p.m., and you don't eat again until 12 noon the next day. That gives your body a full 16-hour break from the work of digestion.
And that's enough to trigger some of that cellular cleanup.
It allows the digestive system to fully rest. It lowers insulin levels for an extended period. It's a fantastic start. But the source also recommends a weekly simple fast.
Which involves what, exactly?
A liquid fast. Once a week, on a designated day, you might stick to just lemon water, herbal teas, or very diluted fruit juices.
The source was very specific about lemon water, wasn't it?
Yes, water with lemon is considered excellent for flushing the system. It's alkaline forming in the body once metabolized, and it really helps to dissolve mucus and kickstart that cleansing process. It's gentle but very effective.
Now, there was a pretty stern warning about dry fasting, fasting with absolutely no food or water.
Yes, the source is very clear on this. Dry fasting is extremely powerful, but it is only for people who are already in very good health and have a lot of energy. If you have any history of kidney stones, gallstones, or you're feeling weak or depleted, you should never do a waterless fast.
Right.
Stick to liquids. The goal is always purification, not punishment.
That's a great line. And fasting is not just about not eating. It's also about how you eat when you do eat, mindful eating.
This ties right back to lymph flow. Remember, digestion requires a tremendous amount of energy and blood flow. If you're wolfing down your food while scrolling on your phone or watching a stressful news report, you are stressing the entire system.
Fight or flight versus rest and digest.
Exactly. The source suggests a simple practice called Vyapak Sauch, which is just washing the hands, legs, and splashing a little cool water in the eyes before eating.
To cool the nerves.
Yes, to physically signal to the body that it's time to shift into that parasympathetic rest and digest state. And chewing. Chewing your food thoroughly reduces the workload on the stomach and ensures you get way more nutrients from what you're eating.
Okay, so we've got the diet go green, go monkey. We've got the fasting time it with the moon, or just try skipping breakfast. Now, let's get physical. Section 4, the toolkit. We established there is no heart for the lymph. We have to be the pump. What are the specific moves that really work?
The source material highlights specific yoga asanas that are not just traditional, but are now scientifically backed to assist this very drainage process. And they generally fall into 3 categories. The first is inversions.
Putting your world upside down.
Literally, think about gravity. All day long, gravity is pulling fluid down into your legs and feet. That's why your ankles might be a little puffy by the end of the day. Inversions completely flip the script.
The specific poses mentioned were Sarvangasana, the shoulder stand, and Viparita Karani, which is legs up the wall.
And Viparita Karani is fantastic for absolutely everyone. It's so accessible. You just lie on your back and shimmy your hips close to a wall and rest your legs up it.
I do that sometimes after a long day. It feels amazing.
It feels amazing because it's working. It allows all that pooled lymph and venous blood in the legs to drain effortlessly with zero muscular effort back toward your core where it can be filtered and recirculated. It's passive drainage.
I love passive. Passive is good.
Yeah.
But then we have the active stuff, the twists, the squeeze and soak method.
Right. Think of a pose like Ardha Matsyendrasana, the half-lord of the fishes pose. It's a deep spinal twist. Now imagine a dirty kitchen sponge. To get the grimy water out, you have to wring it out, right?
Right.
When you twist your torso, you are physically compressing the abdominal organs, the liver, the spleen, the intestines, and all the lymph nodes deep in your belly. You are squeezing the old, stagnant fluid out.
And when you release the twist,
That's the soak. A rush of fresh, oxygenated blood and clean lymph floods back into the tissues. It's a powerful internal flushing mechanism.
and the third category, chest openers.
Poses like cobra or bhujangasana and fish pose, Matsya Mudra, these are all about stretching the chest and the neck. Remember that thoracic duct?
The superhighway.
It dumps all its collected lymph into the big veins right near your collarbones. Opening up the chest stimulates the thymus gland, which is right there, and ensures those major ducts aren't compressed by our chronic, modern-day slouching over a keyboard.
It keeps the highway open for traffic.
Exactly.
So we've inverted, we've twisted, we've opened. And the source, again, mentions the monkey factor here. That movement is just key.
The monkey never stops moving. That is the fundamental takeaway. The lymphatic system craves dynamic movement. Walking, jumping, dancing, a good yoga flow. If you are sedentary, you're choosing to be stagnant.
Now, after the exercise, the source recommends something very specific, self-massage. But it had these almost ritualistic details about it that I found fascinating.
It did. The recommendation is to massage the body after the asanas, not before. And the reasoning is really interesting. It focuses on the sebaceous glands.
The tiny oil glands in our skin.
Right. When you exercise and generate heat, you push the natural oils out of these glands onto the surface of your skin. The source calls these oils the most perfect skin balm imaginable.
So instead of hopping in the shower and washing it all off,
You massage it back in. You're rubbing nature's perfect pH-balanced lotion back into your skin.
it's your own custom-made moisturizer.
Exactly. And it keeps the skin soft and supple. The text is very explicit. Do not bathe for at least 30 minutes after this massage. Let all those beneficial oils soak back in.
And there was a mention of the energy aura, which sounds a bit esoteric.
It does, but you can think of it practically. The source says massage smooths the energy aura, or the energy shell surrounding the body. What that means is it stimulates the nerve endings, it relaxes the muscles down to a very low basal tension. It's about sealing in the benefits of the practice, calming the nervous system after the exertion.
So you do the yoga, you generate the heat, you release the oils, you massage them back in, and then you rest. That's a whole routine.
It's a discipline, but it's a discipline that is designed to build and preserve that raw material, that liquid gold we talked about.
Now, the final tool in the toolkit is the one I think we underestimate the most. The environment itself. The source uses this concept of catalytic agents. It's a chemistry term applied to lifestyle.
It's a great way to think about it. A catalyst is something that speeds up a reaction without being consumed. The source argues that your environment can either speed up or slow down the production of high-quality lymph and, by extension, higher consciousness.
Positive versus negative catalysts.
The positive catalytic agents include things like satsaṅga, which means good, uplifting company, being around people who elevate your thinking. It also includes a clean, peaceful physical environment, like the example given of Anandanagar, a spiritual community. These things literally help your body manufacture better lymph.
And the negative agents. The source was pretty old school in its examples here.
It was. It listed cinema halls, prostitute quarters, and busy commercial places.
Prostitute quarters. I don't think that's on most of our listeners' daily commute, but I get the underlying point.
The underlying principle is still very sound. Environments that are chaotic, that are hypersexualized, or commercially aggressive and loud, they degrade the mind. They create what the source calls a negative psychic environment.
Right.
If your mind is constantly agitated and overstimulated by your surroundings, your body's ability to produce that refined brain food is seriously compromised.
So doom scrolling on social media in a crowded, noisy subway station.
A profoundly negative catalytic agent. You can almost feel your lymph curdling.
And reading an inspiring book in a quiet park.
A powerfully positive catalytic agent. Your internal factory is humming along beautifully.
Simple enough. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground. We've pumped the lymph, we've fed it chlorophyll, we've fasted by the moon. Let's zoom out for section 5. the bigger picture. What does all of this really mean for us as people, as learners, as parents in our modern lives?
It brings us right back to that cycle of purity. The central thesis of these sources is that your biology and your spirituality are not separate things.
They are continuum. One flows into the other.
Yes. Pure food plus a positive environment leads to abundant, high-quality lymph. That refined lymph regulates your hormones and eventually becomes shukra. That potent shukra, if preserved, fuels the ectoplasm of the mind, which is what allows for higher intellect, creativity, and universal love.
It's a biological supply chain for enlightenment.
And we can see this play out in very practical stages of life. The source talks a lot about students. It mentions that junk food leads to sluggishness and mental dullness. That's the physical stagnation we talked about. But a healthy diet and regular fasting lead to a cool, calm, collected mind, which is ideal for learning.
There was also that fascinating anecdote about emotional purification, the idea of resolving grudges.
Yes. Emotional baggage is a toxin. It's a mental impurity. If a student is holding on to anger at a teacher or jealousy toward a friend, that is a mental viridi that takes up bandwidth. It distracts from learning. Clearing that mental space is just as important as clearing out your lymph nodes.
And then there's the section on puberty and decision-making. I found this so specific and so interesting.
It is, isn't it? The source notes a critical spike in lymphatic and hormonal activity during adolescence, specifically citing the ages of 16 to 19, depending on the climate.
The vigor spike.
Right. The glands become incredibly active. This creates this powerful sensation of, I have to do something important with my life. It's a massive surge of potential energy. And the text argues that this is a crucial time for career selection.
It gave that example of forcing a kid who wants to be a doctor into engineering.
Exactly. If that massive surge of lymph-derived energy isn't directed into a channel that matches the person's deep-seated inner nature, they won't progress. The energy either stagnates, leading to depression, or it misfires into destructive behaviors. It just highlights how incredibly sensitive the body-mind connection is during those teenage years.
It makes you look at the moody teenager stereotype a bit differently. They're literally swimming in a surplus of lymph and hormones, and they're desperately trying to figure out where to direct that fire hose of energy.
That's a great way to put it. They need guidance, absolutely, but they also need the freedom to follow the natural flow of that powerful internal energy.
So, my friend, we have untacked the silent river. We have looked at the science and the spirit. What is the ultimate takeaway here? If our listener turns off this deep dive and goes back to their busy life, what are the one or two things that should really stick?
The summary is this. The lymphatic system is a bridge. Physically, it bridges your tissues and your blood, cleaning up the mess and defending the fortress. Spiritually or biopsychologically, it bridges your most basic biological functions and your highest, most subtle consciousness.
It's the alchemist in the body, turning water and salad into pure thought.
So what? The action items are actually very simple. 1, hydrate. You cannot flow if you are dry. The river needs water. 2, move. Be the pump. Don't wait for a heart that doesn't exist.
And 3, consider the fuel. Chlorophyll, more green things. Give the inner monkey what it wants.
And finally, rest. Give your digestive system a break. Just try that 12 or 14-hour window where you're not eating. Let the internal cleaners come in overnight and do their work without being interrupted.
I want to leave the listener with a thought that really hit me while I was prepping for this. We tend to think of our thoughts as these abstract, airy, ethereal things. I think, therefore I am. But if these sources are even remotely right, if the lymph is the raw material for the mind, then are our thoughts literally made of what we ate last month? Is my idea for this podcast, made of spinach.
It's a profound and slightly terrifying question, isn't it? If you are built of fast food, stress, and sedentary days, are your thoughts structurally different? Are they less coherent, less creative than someone built of green leaves and constant movement?
And the final piece? If we stop moving, do our thoughts stagnate, just like the fluid in our ankles? Do our ideas get swollen and puffy and just stuck?
I think the evidence, both ancient and modern, suggests they absolutely do. Stagnant body, stagnant mind, flowing body, flowing mind.
Well, on that note, I'm going to go do a downward dog and then drink a huge glass of lemon water.
I think I'll join you.
Take a deep breath, everyone. Pump that thoracic duct and have a great day.
Stay flowing.